You know, plenty of people who are very into God and all this stuff and religion, but they're terrible people. For me, I'm speaking for me. I've had a hard time.
I'm sorry. Like,
In all the time that you went back to look at the question, what did you come up as an answer for what is love?
I used to think that love was a feeling, and it was something that I felt for someone else. That feeling that I thought was love is not love itself. It's the fruit of love. And that love itself is doing what you believe is truly best for someone else without regard for yourself. If you understand what love really is, it will change the way you see everything.
What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about love?
The whole world says, unless you love yourself, you can't love anyone else. But the truth is, if you love yourself, you can't love anyone else. Because love puts someone first. And if I put myself first in my life, then you're going to come last.
Hey everybody, it's Rachel here. I get asked about my hair all the time, and today I'm spilling the tea on my secret weapon, the Dr. C Tuna Hair Care Reviving Line from Pharmacy. Seriously, if you've ever used a shampoo that leaves your hair feeling stripped, dry, even staticky, you know exactly what I mean. This shampoo cleans your hair so perfectly that it feels super clean, light, and bouncy without that over dry, flat, I lost all my moisture vibe. And then there's the conditioner. It makes your hair incredibly soft and silky, yet never greasy, which is really important to me. I sometimes get nervous about using conditioner because I feel like it's going to grease my hair too quickly. And you're not weighed down or ever worried that you're going to have that heavy feeling later. It's packed with nourishing ingredients that revitalize your strands, boost shine, and even help you manage your frizz. And the best part, you get these luxury hair products without paying a luxury price. Yes, you can indulge in that high-end feel and transformation without breaking the bank. Trust me, once you've tried the Dr. C Tuna Reviving Line, you'll notice your hair looking and feeling amazing. Get ready to rock that hair that's as healthy as it is gorgeous. You deserve it. Go to www.pharmacyus.com. That's spelled FARMASIUS.com/Yucatel, my last name, and find the products there. The website is packed with all sorts of my favorites. Definitely make sure you check it out. And also, the link will be in our show notes. Welcome back to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Yucatel. We live in a world obsessed with love, finding it, keeping it, proving it. But what if much of what we were taught about love is actually self-serving or conditional? My guest today has a story, and his personal transformation offers a radical challenge to everything you think you know about love. This isn't about romance or fairy tales. It's about truth, sacrifice, courage, and the kind of love that isn't afraid to hurt or give without expectation of anything in return. In this episode, we dive deep into what love is and what it isn't. If you've ever been confused, hurt, or searching for love, my guest today, Kenny Vaughn, is about to turn your entire perspective around. Get ready to have your heart opened and your mindset shaken, because today we're getting to the real meaning of love right here on Misunderstood. Kenny, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, and thanks for letting me come on and being interested in what I have to share. So, how are you?
Of course. I'm so excited that you're here. I think, everyone is very interested in the concept and the message of love. And I think that you have a little bit of a different version of it. And I think it's very interesting. You've been studying love day in and day out for over 20 years. And so I really wanted to hear your take on it. Before we get into that, though, I'd love for our listeners and me too to hear a little bit about you. Tell me where you were born, what kind of family you grew up in, and where your love for faith came in, and love in general.
Yeah, so I'll give you the real short version. So I'm in the Houston, Texas area, born and raised in this area. We're a little closer to Louisiana on the Gulf Coast. My parents were always around the water, so I grew up water skiing, and then I became a competitive long distance water ski jumper, and I had a long journey at that with everything that comes with that. And then I gave up. I was trying to win a national championship. I gave up because of fear of failing mostly. And then I met a girl. She's been my wife for 20, I think 27 years now, 28.
Wow.
And she was my girlfriend at the time. And I hadn't skied in like 5 years. My coach had been wanting me to come back, but I just couldn't deal with it. And so, but I wanted to show off. So to my new girlfriend. So I went down and jumped again. I ended up getting back into the sport. and I competed for a few years, and I was thinking I wouldn't be afraid anymore. But I was just as afraid or more than ever. And then my girlfriend wrote a scripture on my equipment, or two of them actually. One of them was, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," and the other one was, "God didn't give me the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind." And that's a long story, but eventually I ended up back at a national championship. I had crashed. We had three jumps. Our longest jump wins. We fly about 3/4 the length of a football field. We're rising, 2.5, 3 stories. We're going 70 miles an hour when we hit the ramp. You have to ski away from the jump. Longest jump wins. We get three jumps. My second jump, I crash and I mess up some of my equipment. And we only get 3 minutes for repairs if we have damaged equipment. And I wasn't able to fix all my equipment in the 3 minutes. So I had to go with damaged equipment. And I was more afraid than I'd ever been in my life. It was the time I'd have been more afraid than ever. I saw those scriptures. I chose to trust God's word instead of my fear. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. I jumped longer than I'd ever jumped in my life with damaged equipment. My dream comes true winning this nationals. And I go out of that and I'm thinking, what happened? Not how did I win, but why was I not afraid? Like what I wanted to understand that, because I felt like if I could understand if I didn't understand, I would probably just be afraid again the next time the circumstances arose. But if I could sort it out and understand it, then maybe I wouldn't.
Mm.
And so I started digging into that, and then I saw I saw a scripture that said perfect love drives out fear, and I'm like, what does love have to do with fear? I didn't understand that. There was so much I didn't understand. But what I ended up asking myself, and I think this is such an important question. I learned this from really great, like the U.S. team coaches would tell me, Kenny, like you need to. They would ask me questions that I'd never asked myself, but that would take me to a fundamental understanding that if I understood would then resolve the problems I had. And so I was thinking about them, and I asked myself this question. I thought, well, what one of those great coaches asked me if I'm trying to understand all of this? And the question was very simple: what is love? And when I asked myself what is love, I didn't know. Like I kind of thought I knew, but I really didn't have an answer. And so I thought, you know what? The first thing I have to do is understand love. And I thought I would just understand that, and then I would move on to solving the rest of the equation. But what I realized is that as I came to understand love, the equation solved itself. And everything else started to fall into place. So that's kind of my life journey. How I ended up here, I thought I would be here for a few weeks, answer the question, and move on. And 20 years later, it's everything. Like if you understand what love really is, it will change the way you see everything.
Right. Okay. So let's answer that question. But before we get there, I'm curious from your story. Before your girlfriend, who's now your wife, wrote these scriptures on your equipment, did you grow up in a very religious or faith-based family?
No. Oh, well, I mean, I would say my family, not religious at all. We didn't go to church,
Okay. So
as
all of that was new to you. You didn't know what any of that meant.
Well, she wrote those are probably the two most popular scriptures in the Bible. When she wrote them on my gear, I'd never heard either one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
it didn't affect you in the way, you were just like, okay, it's a bunch of words.
Well, I thought it was encouraging.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? Hey, if God said that, or you're saying God says that, that's encouraging. So I thought it was encouraging, but that was about it. That was all. That was the extent of my understanding of that. But having it there every day, all day long, resulted in me. I would say first, no. Now at least I know what it says. Then I was trying to understand what it says. And then I would say it kind of dropped, where I didn't need to read it anymore. I knew it, and I would say I even believed it. But I didn't know what to do with that belief.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to live that or whatever.
And tell me one more time, what was that scripture, or paraphrase it if it's long?
Yeah, so one of them was, I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And the other one was, for God has not given me the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind.
Got it. Okay. So now let's go to what you were talking about. In all the time that you went back to look at the question, what did you come up as an answer for what is love?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to answer that question. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to share a brief story, because if I don't, I think most of what I say is going to be misunderstood.
Totally. Tell the story,
Okay.
but
But
speak
I think
slow because you have a little bit of an accent. And I want our listeners who are not watching you and they're listening in a car or whatever, I want them to be able to really understand what you're saying.
yeah, no, thank you for that. I need to be reminded about that.
That's okay.
So I would just say, let me define it first, and then I'll tell the story, and then we can go from there. But I would say that I used to think that love was a feeling, and it was something that I felt for someone else. But I would say now what I would say is that feeling that I thought was love is not love itself. It's the fruit of love, and that love itself is doing what you believe is truly best for someone else without regard for yourself. And I would say that love is your offense and your defense, because when I hear that, even now, I think, well, who's going to look out for me? But the truth is, if I really love, then love is my best defense. Okay. But before I go any further with that, because this is where I'll start being misunderstood, let's just share a brief story.
Sure.
So when my children are grown now, but when they were little, I had three children, Faith, Grace, and Kennedy. So Faith was the oldest, Grace was the middle, Kennedy was the youngest. Mm-hmm. And we would do ice cream trips. So in the evening, I might say, hey, let's go ice cream run, or they would say ice cream run. It could be 10 o'clock at night. And we would just all load up. My parents did this with me. We load up in the car and we go get some ice cream. And I had an old truck. And, when you got three kids, they were probably around about, maybe Kennedy was 3, Grace was probably 6 or 7, Faith was 8 or 9. But when you got 3 kids in the truck, that's a spill every time, And so what happened was I got a new truck. And when I got a new truck, I thought, my first thought was, what about the ice cream runs? That can't happen because there's no fix for this. They're going to spill the ice cream. And so I went to them and I said, no more ice cream runs. And of course, that didn't go over real well, but I made it clear that I was serious. And I know how selfish this sounds now. Okay. But at the time, I didn't fully, whatever. So I said, no more ice cream runs. And so we didn't for a while. But after a while, I could see it was really wearing on. It would come up now and then. And every time I would feel selfish because I was. and I could see they were disappointed. And so I'm trying to wrestle with what to do. So I had this idea. I thought, you know what? I'm going to get some like beach towels. and I'll put them in the truck and I'll put the towels in their lap and I'll put towels on the floor and it'll work. And so I go to them and I say, hey, let's do this ice cream run. And they're like, okay, yeah, Dad wants to do an ice cream run. So I do this. I put them in the seat, put the towels in their laps. We go get the ice cream. And I had a talk with them before we went about, hey, Dad's new truck. Let's take care of it, Well, it goes wonderfully. And I'm pulling back into the garage. And I hit the garage door opening, and the garage door opens. And I'm thinking, the whole time I just didn't emphasize it enough. And at that moment, I kid you not, like a scoop glob of ice cream came flying from the back seat between me and my wife, hits my radio and my dashboard, splop, and starts melting down. And my first thought is, they threw it. Like, how else does ice cream come flying through my truck? You threw it. And so I turn around and I look, and Faith, my oldest, looks like, wasn't me. My son Kennedy in the middle he's out of his car seat on the floor. He looks like, I don't know, he doesn't even know what's going on. I look at Grace. She looks like she saw a ghost. And Grace is my one, every kid's different. Grace is the one that, I have to be careful how I correct her because she'll go hide on her bed, for 3 hours just because I said she did something wrong, So I'm about to just let her have it. And I turn around. I'm not thinking about that then. I'm just thinking somebody's about to pay. I turn around. I look, and that ice cream is running behind the buttons on my radio. My last truck had gotten coat behind one of those buttons, and it would stick down every time you pushed it. And so I'm thinking, what do? I don't know what else to do. Literally, I just wrap my lips around the button and start sucking the ice cream out from my radio and out from behind the button, and it worked. I look at my wife. She's like, what is going on? He's lost his mind. And I kind of had, but I saved my radio. But in that moment, I had a second to think that love always seeks the truth. Like I had learned in studying love that, there's 7 things that love is, and that one of those things is the truth, and that love always seeks the truth. And in a moment to think, I knew Grace would never throw that ice cream. Like I knew she wouldn't throw it, but I was about to treat her like she had. And so then I thought, I gotta seek the truth. So I tried to calm down enough. Now I turned and asked Grace, what happened? Instead of just launching on her, I asked her, baby, what happened? And that was not easy to do. And she said, Daddy, I promise I was doing everything I could. I even took Kennedy's ice cream so it wouldn't spill, and I was holding his. But Dad, you told him to do the front flip out of the car seat when he's getting out. And when he did it, I was holding his cup out. His heel hit the cup, and the ice cream went flying. And as soon as I knew the truth, I no longer wanted to attack my daughter, who didn't do anything to deserve being attacked. She was doing everything she could. And then I just started thinking through like if you asked me who I love, my truck or my daughter, I would tell you I love my daughter. I don't love my truck. But I was actually about to love my truck, not my daughter, and at my daughter's expense. I was going to put my truck before my daughter. And in reality, I can't love my truck. My truck is a thing. I wasn't loving the truck because nothing I do for the truck helps the truck. But if I take care of the truck, it helps me. I feel better about my truck. So in reality, I was about to love myself, not my daughter. And that started the whole, I'd say that was the beginning of going from how do I understand love to be a better ski jumper to how love will change the way I live my life and make me a better father.
Wow.
So that's a hard story for me to tell, but I just want to set the stage so people have a grasp of where I'm going.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. You said something in there that there are 7 things that love is, right? Did I hear you right?
Yes, ma'am.
What are those 7 things?
So hopefully I remember them all. But love is patient. Love is patient. Love is kind. It's truthful. Love protects others. Love trusts. Love hopes. And love perseveres. And since you asked that, I would say it's important to realize, and this is something I've realized even more recently, is that love is kind. Love is always kind, but kindness is not always love.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that. Explain that concept.
So at first I thought, when I first realized, okay, love is patient, kind, truthful, protects, hopes, and perseveres, then I thought my job was just to be patient, kind, just do these things and I'll be loving.
Right.
But in reality, I can do all of those things. And actually, if people want to manipulate you and they have understanding, they'll actually be those things. They'll be kind to you, but not for you. They'll be kind to you for their own sake. Which is really like the worst form of selfishness because it's using it's using love as a weapon to get what you want.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're saying to be those things selflessly is love. But if you're doing it for manipulation or to get what you want for you, that is the opposite of love.
Yeah, and I would sum it up like this: love is not a what. We always think love is a what, and if I believe love is a what, not only will that be how I look for love in you, whether or not you love me, it will also be how I love you. Mm-hmm. So love is not a what. Love is a why.
Okay, I've heard you talk about that as well, and that's a little confusing for people to hear. So explain that tangibly so we understand what you mean.
So tangibly, I would say, like just even my own parents. There were times that they punished me. There were times that there were consequences for my behavior, and it didn't seem kind at all. But it was actually for my sake. So the why behind why they did it was for me. It wasn't for them. It was actually even hard for them to do it. But because they loved me, they disciplined me. And if they disciplined me because they love me, then I don't like it at first. But eventually we all know why people are doing what they're doing. So even though I don't like it at first, if it's my wife correcting me on something, I don't like it if it doesn't seem kind to me. It seems like you're not loving me, but eventually I know why people are doing what they're doing. And when I realize why they did it was for me, then I realize I'm loved. That's when I feel love. So it's like my wife loves me. If you ask me if I love my wife, I would say you really need to ask her, not me. But it's when my wife loves me that I feel loved. And so, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's a lot of, it's actually easy concepts to understand, but we've been trained in such a way to think of love, I think, differently.
Right.
fairy tales when we're younger, to now being on dating apps and thinking that love is just like getting married, right? Like there's not much more, like you kind of miss out on the whole connection part and your responsibility in that connection and how the connection is working. So, you hear from people like there are shows, which I'm sure you don't watch, but like Love is Blind or, things where people are falling in love nowadays, which are much different than when you were falling in love with your wife, but how people are finding that chemistry. And so I'm curious about your thoughts on chemistry and how that exists in your mind in relation to love.
Okay, so two things. I don't forget one of them, but one, I'm going to say, I don't think we fall in love. I think we love, and then love grows in the relationship, or we fail to love, and then love dies in the relationship. I can explain that if you like, but
Okay.
then your question was, what about the just like connection? Like I'm guessing you're just saying like, there are people that love me and that I love, but that I don't have any sense of I want to marry them.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know that that's necessarily understandable. I don't know that I can explain that. I mean, that's real. We all know it's there. And I don't really know what determines that. I will say this though. I will say that you could take two people that seem to have no connection at all, and you could put them on an island, or you put them in a situation somewhere for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. If those two people choose to love each other, they're patient, kind, truthful, protect, these things, over time, they're going to start feeling love for each other. Now, they may not come out of that wanting to be in a relationship together, but they're going to know they are loved, and they're going to love. And it's going to hurt them to see the other one go about their own way, right? Or you could put two people on the same island that seem to have every connection imaginable, insanely drawn to each other. But there are these 8 things that love is not, which is like angry, rude, envious, prideful, boastful, selfish, delighting in evil. And so they'll be really close immediately, but over time, they will be on opposite sides of the island. And with enough time, they'll be praying that the other side of the island becomes a desert. So love itself is the decision. And then so we get into relationships with each other and we think we fall in love or we fall out of love. But the truth is, when we first get into a relationship, and if there's the connection in there, I don't know what to tell you about it. Like, I don't have an answer for that. Okay?
And when you say connection, and what I was saying was like the chemistry, the sexual connection, like, people are attracted, not attracted, that kind of connection can be there at the beginning. So
that
go ahead.
Yeah, that can be there and there not be love. And that can be there and there be love, or there can be love and that not be there.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So,
well, and actually, on a side note, I think that's important to talk about for 1 second, because there are so many marriages that feel like they've lost that. I'm going to use the word chemistry, not love, chemistry in it. And so there's not a lot of physical connection, but you might still feel that patience, kindness, all those things for that person and want the best for them. But you've lost that physical intimacy and people think their marriage is over. So do you have a thought on that?
I do. So I would say if they got married, the connection part was intact. It's like the two people that you put on the island that were. What happened, though, was as they failed to love each other. I mean, they say they love each other, but if you got involved in their lives, if you were a fly on the wall, what you would see is the anger, rudeness, envy, pride, both these kind of things. And so, you would see patient, kind, truthful, protects, hope, perseveres, but it's all manipulation. So it's just like a parent who disciplines a child, not for the child's sake. So the child did something like my daughter in the ice cream situation. If she actually threw the ice cream, then I would have a responsibility to discipline her so that she doesn't throw ice cream, but not so that my truck doesn't get messed up.
Right.
In other words, my responsibility is to love my daughter. So if I'm disciplining my children, or if I'm correcting if I'm arguing with my spouse or my friends or anyone else, and the why is me, they know they aren't loved. But if the why is them, they know they are loved. And even if I do good things for them, patient, kind, truthful, protects others, trust, hope, persevere. If I do those things for them, but it's for me, they know they aren't loved.
Right.
They're getting all that stuff, but they know it's not love.
Wait, so how do you have an argument using those 7 things and be about them and wanting to work it out with them? How do you suggest for people listening? Because now I'm thinking, all right, I may love somebody, but I do get into arguments. How do you come from a place of love?
You argue for their sake. In other words, I'm not going to fight you, but I will fight for you.
Ooh, I love that.
So, and you have to understand that the best thing for the person you love is for them to love. Because if they love, fruitfulness is their destiny. If they fail to love, if fear rules their life, they're going to become angry, rude, envious. All I'm worried about is you're being angry and rude to me. That's because I'm focused on me. But if I love you, the reason I don't want you being angry and rude is not so I have to bear the brunt. It's because you being angry and rude is going to result, and it's 100% guaranteed, your life is going to be fruitless. So you're hurting me, but you're destroying yourself. So that's what I mean by love is your offense and your defense. So I would say that love, we tend to think that if we're loving, then we really have a long leash for people's selfishness. But that's really not love, because people's selfishness is destroying them. It may be hurting you and other people, but it's destroying them. So if I really love you, my leash for your selfishness becomes much shorter. Right. I don't really have to worry about protecting myself from your selfishness, because I don't have to fight for me, because I'm already fighting for you. And if you're loving, I have nothing to fight for.
So I'm curious, do you see the best in everybody and try to bring that out in them? And if they don't kind of come to the table with you on that, you have some boundaries with that?
No, I think love is its own boundary.
Okay.
So, and I think it applies to every single situation. I think if we have a bunch of boundaries, we have to maintain them, and they slowly become our own prison. And we can't, it's like, we can't, it's endless. There's an endless amount about it. It's dependent upon everybody we interact with. They all need something different. And so we end up loading ourselves down, where if we actually just depended on and trusted the boundary of love itself, which is for their sake, it covers everything. And so I'm sorry, I got sidetracked for a second. What was your question again, though? You said,
no, now I don't remember, because I like what you were just talking about.
Yeah. So you said,
well, it'll come back to me.
Yeah. I think you said, what do you do? Do you have just endless tolerance, basically?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So
not endless tolerance. It was more like, I was curious if you as a person see the good in everybody, and you just, when they're such a dick to you, you're just like, and you're trying to be nice to them. And if they're not, you just cut them off, because you're like, they're too toxic, and it's better for them to not have me deal with this or whatever.
No, love seeks the truth.
Okay. So you tell people
now you need, look, if you have the relationship, I would say telling them is like the last resort, because normally it's so simple, if someone's just, being rude to us, then, and we don't care. If I don't care about someone who's being rude to me, then it's okay. Like, I'll just remove myself. I'll find my own way out of here. I really don't have to care about you. Or if I get enough of it, then I'll just unleash myself on them for my own sake. And all of that doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sit well with me that I don't care about people. It doesn't sit well with me that if you push me over my limit, you're just going to get everything. Like, basically, you just determined who I am. None of that sits well with me. So I think love has the responsibility to identify the truth. So if they're being really rude, normally it's so simple. We all know how to do it, to just make it clear, like what? Like, what was that? It's very simple. But if you can give them every suggestion, which we almost never do, because we're like, that would be rude.
Right.
Right. But really, it's rude to pretend, and it's not kind to pretend that what they're doing is okay, because no one wants to be around that person.
Right.
Like, their lives are being destroyed.
Right.
But we don't really care as long as they don't do it to us. So, no, I think we have a responsibility to care. We have to identify the truth. Yes, it is hard sometimes whenever you, and don't pick on everything. Some truths are not worth defending. We all have our pet peeves. All that stuff goes. but if someone really loves you, it's not hard to deal with the pet peeves. Like if
Right.
you know that there's love there, it's not that hard.
Did you know that over 70 million Americans suffer from chronic sleep problems? Sleep just isn't about rest. It's vital for hormone health, stress reduction, and overall well being. I used to struggle so much with my sleep that I became addicted to sleeping pills. And then that only took care of the problem of falling asleep. Staying asleep was a whole nother problem. But then I discovered Dreamies. Dreamies is designed specifically for women, helping to support your body's natural rhythms through every hormonal shift. It's a powerful combination of melatonin, ashwagandha, and magnesium. It calms the mind, relaxes the body, and promotes deep, restorative sleep. Now I wake up feeling refreshed and balanced, and I no longer need those prescriptions. I fall asleep easily and without a worry. If you've been tossing and turning, it's time to let Dreamies transform your nights and your life. Prioritize your health with the power of sleep and take back your energy one night at a time. Dreamies, because every woman deserves deep, restful sleep. I want to go back to something you brought up a little bit earlier, where you said you don't believe in falling in love. I've seen you talk about the concept that no one loves you because of her; it's because of them, and you've kind of talked about that a little bit. Can you really make that clear?
Yeah, that's a great. Thank you for asking that. So we think that if I think that you love me because of me, your love for me depends on me. That means I have to be something in order to be loved by you.
You have to show up in that moment for that person to love them. I get it. Yeah.
That's right. And if so, I have to be something, not just show up in that moment, but I have to be something. My state of being essentially has to be something so that you'll love me. And if my state of being changes, or if I do something wrong, then that means you won't love me anymore.
Right.
So the problem with that is if someone loves you because of who you are, then they don't love you. They love what they're getting from you. They love the state of being that you're in, and that pleases them. And so then they show you these 7 things that love is because they want more of what you're getting. But if you quit giving them what they want, then they're going to show you the 8 things that love is not, to try to force you to be what they want you to be so that they get what they want. And that's not love.
I see.
That's not love at all. If someone really loves you, then if you do something different, if you become something different, they may not like that because they love you, but they still love you.
So you're what you're talking about is what we learn to be unconditional love, a love that you usually have for your children, sometimes your pets, whatever it is, where they can make all sorts of mistakes and you still, for the most part, can love them. I think that's a harder love for people to grasp with a loved one, with a married partner. They may change, their job may change, but I think I totally follow with what you're saying. I think that's a harder love, don't you think, between spouses than it is with a child?
I think it's hard with all of them.
Okay.
It's really hard because I wouldn't call it unconditional because unconditional almost sounds like anything goes. And that may not mean what most people mean. Most people probably don't mean that. But I would just say that love is I have one condition: what is truly best for you. And if it's not truly best for you, then I'm out. Not for me, but for you. And so yes, so the reason it's not unconditional is that, or you may not see it this way. It's still my love. So it's like, in other words, just like my punishment or my withdrawal or my correction should be my love. Because I love you, you're becoming something different that's not best for you. Then I can't support it. But if you're becoming something different that is best for you but not best for me, and I don't love you, I just pretend, then I'm going to resist it because I'm no longer going to get what I want.
So for people that are listening that really are following this and are like, oh, I get it. Do you feel like you have to keep yourself in check a lot of the time to be like, am I coming from a place of being selfish? Am I being selfless now? I mean, I would feel like to make those corrections, you really have to be in check with your instincts and the impetus for why you are having conversations or behaving in certain ways, right?
I thought that at first, but what I've learned is that like we instinctively are aware of that at all times. We numb that down, because like we try to dumb that down because we know we justify all that stuff. And I think that's the inner turmoil. The inner turmoil is not really that hey, I'm not going to be, I'm going to behave this way. I'm not going to behave this way for these reasons. The inner turmoil comes from whenever I know what I did was selfish, but I'm justifying it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think you have to, I don't find myself constantly going, is that selfish or is this not? But I do find myself going, what's best for them? What's best here? And then trying to respond that way. But I also find myself, and I think we all will, failing massively all the time, like on a regular basis. And so from there, what I would used to do when I knew I had failed, or maybe you threw the ice cream, but I reacted the wrong way. I reacted for me. So my responsibility then, and we do this all the time. Well, if I don't love you, what I will do is I will just defend my actions. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but they threw the ice cream. So I was justified. But that's me first. And everybody knows they aren't loved. My responsibility is to say, I'm sorry that I reacted that way. And I shouldn't have. And I'm going to work to not ever do that again. At the same time, you can't throw ice cream. You know what I mean? But not because you're going to mess up my truck. Because, baby, if you go around throwing ice cream in life, you're not going to get any. Life's going to punish you. It's just how it works. It's the law of God, and there's nothing going to change it. And so as long as we buck the things that are inevitable, what we do is we fight. We end up with a million boundaries. We do all these different things. We're working so hard to get inner peace, and we are guaranteed continued inner turmoil. But if we ever trust love, if we ever decide, you know what, I surrender, and then I'm gonna follow the truth wherever it takes me, and I'm gonna love even whenever it hurts, because love will cost you something. I like to say love always costs you something, but never more than failing to love will cost you. So and at first it's extremely hard. It was for me, because I feel like, what am I gonna be, a doormat? But then what you start realizing is, no, you're actually the first one to stand up, not the last, because you love people. There's so many things I'm not going to stand up for me. I don't care. I'll just get away from it. But for you, I have to take a stand for the truth. So I'm least stepped on, not most stepped on. But I am okay with being stepped on.
This is fascinating to me. Most people, I think, have grown up to think that love and hate are opposites. You say that's not the truth. Fear is the opposite of love, right?
Yeah, right. So I would say, so hate, I think, is a fruit of fear. And so all I mean by that, this may help sum that up, but I would just say that love will do what it believes is truly best for others without regard for itself. It doesn't have to worry about itself, because if I do that for me, then it's not love. Like if I do what I think is best for you, but it's really for me, it's not love. So, but if I really do it for you, then it's love. Then love becomes my own defense. So love will do what it believes is truly best for others without regard for itself. Fear will do what it believes is truly best for itself without regard for others. So fear is me first, and love is you first.
Got it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
But if fear your question was, hey, what is hate and fear? If we live a life of fear, I don't mean that anybody doesn't feel fear. We all feel it all the time. But if we live a life obedient to fear, which is me first, then what happens is I'm me first, and then I destroy all my relationships, and then I start really suffering, and then it's not my fault; it's everyone else's fault. And then when my suffering is everyone else's fault, I hate them.
Well, and let's go back to that story you told about your girlfriend putting those words on your equipment and you reading them and getting up there and kind of losing that fear and doing better than you had before. How were you able to get over that fear and choose love and choose braveness in the moment?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So literally, after that happened, and I'm waiting my turn, but they're about to take me back. I'm about to go back for my last jump, and I got this damaged equipment, and it's like there's no possible way. There's no possible way. And I just said, you know what? This was my lifelong dream. As much as anybody ever wanted anything, whatever reason, I wanted this thinking national championship. But it was impossible. Like everything I knew about this, there's no possible way. And I couldn't handle that pressure. Like I didn't even want to go take the last jump because I'm like, it's over. It's already over. And because I couldn't handle that pressure, I would say I surrendered. I just said, you know what? Never mind that gold medal, Lord. I just want to do the best that I can for you. And when I said that, the moment I said that, it was like I realized I had a higher calling with no chance of failing. In other words, whether I won or not, it was okay because I had done something that was more important. And when I did that, that's when my fear left.
Wow.
And then something that I never imagined could have ever happened. I'd have to explain my sport to you to understand why it could have never happened with the busted boot and everything else involved. It happened. So it's like the moment I laid it down. I like to think of it like this. It's like you can spend your whole life chasing what you want. You'll never catch it.
Mm.
But if you'll lay that down and start seeking what's truly best for God and others, what you want will catch you. And that's what it felt like happened. It was like the moment I gave up on my dream, it came true.
Wow. And that's where, go ahead, sorry.
I was just saying, I don't think it could have if I hadn't made that decision. Because aside from that, I'd have been doing everything I could knowing that it was impossible. No telling, I'd have been overwhelmed with fear and I'd have butchered it. And
it seems like that's where your faith really came in, faith in you, faith in whether or not you believed in God at the moment, and I know from following a lot of your social media that you have a huge, your roots are really in a lot of your faith. And a lot of people listening might not have caught up to that yet, may not have found that in their lives yet. They might struggle with that because they've been through a lot of things and they feel like there must not be a God, right? There's all sorts of reasons people have not caught up to that in their lives. How do you explain faith to people that aren't such believers at the moment?
Well, I would say, first of all, if God was who most people have been taught that he is, if God was who most people believe he is, then they shouldn't believe. Because he's not. No, I mean, they're very justified. Like no truthful person would believe if God is who the world teaches us he is. But if you really know who Jesus is, if you really come to know who he is, you can't not love him because he loves you. And so how do I share my faith with people? I try to be careful. I try to be conscious of, because my responsibility, and this is, I think a lot of times Christians make this mistake. We feel so grateful for the difference that's been made in our lives, but we still have a false understanding of love. So we think we have a responsibility to God. In other words, for us to be better in God's eyes. So it's not really for God, it's really for us. For me to look better in God's eyes, I want to go put my faith on everyone else. And so if I come to you to share my faith with you, not for you, but for me, you know it. So like in one quick conversation, you know what's going on. We all know this. God created us to understand these things. I mean, we have the sensors, whatever it is, we know it. And so I naturally reject that because I'm created to reject that because it's selfishness. So the way we should share our faith, first of all, we have to ask ourselves, why are we sharing it? If I'm sharing my faith, it shouldn't be for me, and God doesn't need my help. It's really not for God. It's for the person I'm sharing it with. Mm-hmm. So that means I have a responsibility, not just to say what I want, but to communicate something in a way that they are most likely to understand it, that will reveal to them who God really is compared to who they believe he is. That's the best shot I got. And I would say if me doing so, if I believe, the best I can do is what I believe. If I believe that me saying anything at all will only push them further away from God, then closer to him, and I love them, I won't say anything.
Right.
I don't want to push them away. So then sometimes I just have to let my life be the best witness. And I'm going to tell you something. I got some stories for this. I'll spare them. But if you really love very difficult people, eventually, I mean, sometimes that means getting away from them. I'm not going to help you be very difficult because I love you, you know. But if you really love them, eventually they figure out who loved them and who didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then your love for them is what will change their heart. That's what will soften their heart.
Wow, Kenny, this is like super powerful because it's very interesting. When you think of faith, I think in my head of my mother forcing me to go to church when I was younger and putting me in Bible studies and whatever. And then some people grow up and they decide to go to church on Sundays, whether or not they believe all week long. They think that kind of makes them feel better. And then plenty of people who are very faith-based and very into God and all this stuff and religion, but they're terrible people. They say terrible things about people. They are terrible to people. And so I think for me, I'm speaking for me, I've had a hard time with faith, but there's something that intrigues me about it. And when I sit there and listen to people talking, I'm thinking, how do they know this isn't just an imaginary person that they're talking to, right? That they're just making all this shit up and, we can write stories down and millions of years later, whatever it is, how would you know that any of that existed? That's like crazy to believe, right? But as you're talking, it's so different the way you're communicating it. And it's maybe not a person that you believe in, but it's a concept and it's a feeling and it's a way to live your life is how I'm receiving that from you. And I am really open to it. And I think it's very cool. I just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you. And
it's more than I've gotten out of church in the last decades, a couple decades.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry, people. And I'll do it too, unfortunately. I mean, there's probably people that tell you. Like guy says he's a Christian, you should let me tell you something, And I owe them an apology. I need to repent to them. And so we do a bad job of it. And maybe your mom made you go to church for her, but maybe she made you go to church because she loved you.
Right.
And maybe she did the best she could. She didn't know what to do with it. I don't know, and maybe she didn't. But if your mom didn't, then she should apologize. She should. I think what we make the mistake of after we do these kind of things, what we do is we make the mistake of saying, I'm sorry I did all that, but I loved you the whole time. Mm-hmm. So then we think that was love. But what we should say is, I'm sorry I failed to love you then, but I love you now. And I'm willing to love you now. And I want what's best for you and nothing else. Because I want what's best for you, I want you to believe. But it's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to love. Like, in other words, my command isn't to go and make people be obedient to God. I remember trying to do that kind of stuff. And then God reminded me, hey, the greatest commandment is this. You are to love the Lord your God with all heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. So my responsibility is to love. But a lot of Christians don't really know what love is.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't for a long time. And so, yeah, they do all that stuff. But I would just say, understand. I hope you understand those things. You're right. They're wrong. Those behaviors are wrong. And that's what I mean when I say, if that's who we think God is, we're actually, it's almost loving to not believe.
Right.
Like if you think that's who God is and that's what you want to serve, like, why? That's not the truth though. I'm just saying.
Right. No, I totally follow along and I get it. A couple more questions about love and relationships, because I think a lot of people, again, associate love with they want to find the one, right? They want to find this relationship. What is, to you, the first sign of love? That someone loves you, that you can really see? And I think we've talked about it, that it's all these things, right? But for people that are online dating, or simplifying it, what should people be looking for real love?
Okay, so why? You need to be looking at why people are doing what they're doing, not they're doing. Because we all know, like you want to say, okay, if they're patient, they're kind, they're truthful, they protect you, but they can protect you for their own sake. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can protect you so they look like a protector because they want you. So how do you know? So how do you discern that? I would say when you see that, the next thing you need to look at, okay, we know they want you. So they're going to be, if they don't really love you, they're going to pretend, and they're going to be patient, kind, truthful. They're not going to be angry, rude, envious, boastful, because they know they're not going to get you. So if they want you, so if we know they want you, if you're going on this date or whatever, then they're going to be these things. So we need time, because with time, we don't need to hurry up. We need to slow down. Love is patient. So we need to slow down and give time for the truth to reveal itself. The truth will always reveal itself. The problem is when it reveals itself, we see the red flags, we ignore them because we're failing to love, because we want them.
Right.
So it's like, I'll take that many red flags as long as I can still get you. So we need to pay attention to that. The other thing we can do, though, is we can pay attention to how these people interact with other people that they don't want, because it's who they are. If they really love you, it's not because of who you are, it's who they are. So it will be who they are at their core, which means if they're patient with you, but they're not patient with anyone else, they want you. They're not patient. You know what I'm saying? It's not who they are. So pay attention to how they treat other people. And then I would say specifically, how do they treat their enemies? Because that's almost an immediate indication of who they are. Because not only do they not want anything from them, we all have this in us that, it's okay if my enemy gets hurt. You know what I mean? But if we love our enemies, we really don't want them to be hurt. We want them to change. And we're not going to be around them because we're not going to help them do that anymore. But if
you say you should still come from a place of love, even to your enemies.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know that's the hardest hurdle to clear. But if I love my enemy, that doesn't mean I'm okay with my enemy being my enemy. Maybe because I could get.
Well, no, I know what you're saying, but you're okay. Go ahead.
I could easily be misunderstood here. So let me say it like this. So then the question becomes, how do I know if I love my enemy or not? So then, Scripture tells us we're to love our enemies. So if we're not careful, what we'll do, Christians, we'll sit around trying to work up this feeling of love for someone that we can't stand. And that's an impossibility. So you have this fake feeling of love that you think is love. And so that's how you expect love, and that's how you give love and everything. It's not love at all. If you want to know if you love your enemy, and I think what you need to ask yourself is this: if my enemy actually repented, they really changed, like they became a completely different person, and their life was new and different, and they would never ever treat anyone else like they treated me, would I be envious? Would I be angry? Or would I be grateful? And if their lives truly changed and they were blessed for the change, I hope that I would be grateful. But that said, until it changes, if they're going to be my enemy, I'm going to love them enough to tell them everything they're doing is a mistake, and they can count me out on participating.
Right. Because I love your opinion on these things, on so many things that are a little bit different, I want to know your opinion on envy. Envy and jealousy, I think, is so hard for people to get over, genuinely. What would your thoughts be on how people can help themselves not have that living in their head?
So I think envy and jealousy are two different things.
Oh, okay.
Just me, and hopefully I can say this right. I've thought about this a lot most recently, but I think envy means that I don't want you to have what you have. I want to have it. Okay. I think jealousy is more like, like my wife, for example. If I envy my wife, if she gets attention that I want, then I'm going to be mad at my wife, or I'm going to have some kind of, and that's rooted in fear. I'm afraid that what she's getting is making her more important than me. So envy's never good. But jealousy would be like, if some great looking guy came along and they hammed it up for 30 minutes while I was sitting over here in the sofa, I'm gonna feel jealousy. I might even feel some envy as well. But I think jealousy is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's like, because I love my wife. If in other words, if that same thing happened and I had no sense of jealousy whatsoever, I probably don't love my wife. You know? But envy is a little different. But your question was like, well, how do you deal with that? I think jealousy, just understand, hopefully, if it's really jealous, there's a big difference between the two. Jealousy is, I feel like you're failing to love me. like what's going on here? But envy, I think we need to ask ourselves, like, why am I envious? That's the first question. Which anytime we face any of these things that love is not, we need to ask ourselves why. In any situation, like why is the most important first question we could ever ask. Whatever the answer to that question is, whatever the answer is, our next question should be why. Why again? Why is that the answer to this question? And then the answer to that question should be why again. And 2 to 3 whys will get to the core belief, what it is we believe. So the core belief, if I'm envious of other people, is that somehow I believe that what other people are getting makes them more valuable than me. It makes them lovable and me not lovable. But if you ever get anyone to that place and you ask them, well, do you really believe that's the truth? I've never had anyone say, yeah, I believe that's the truth.
Right.
They would say, no, I guess it's not. Then you say, well, why do you believe that's true? And sometimes they'll say, I'm not really sure. I'm going to say, let's figure it out. Because
right. So it's a deeper question, and the feeling it might exhibit is envy or jealousy, but there's a whole different thing to tackle in your head, really.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with feeling envy. Now, if we feel it all the time, there's something wrong with what we're doing before we feel the envy. Right. It's a belief. So all of this, I would say, all of this comes down to a very core belief. Like it's people think what they think, they feel what they feel, they do what they do, all because they believe what they believe. Right. And a lot of times we just operate in the thinking and the feeling and the doing, and we don't understand that none of that's going to change anything. We have to go to the belief. But if we can go to the belief and say, is that true? And then choose to fight to believe the truth, not the lie. That's the battle. And it's not easy. That is a real battle. But when we enter that battle, everything turns on a dime. Mm-hmm. Until we get in that battle, we're fighting a losing battle. Because if we ever change our belief, then we'll think differently, we'll feel differently, and we'll do differently. Mm-hmm. And we'll respond differently. So in envy, I feel it. We all feel it. Then I got to go, okay, why not feel envy for that? And then I think, you know what? Do I care about this person or do I not? And is it going to hurt me to help them? No. You know what? I'm just going to help them. And I think, well, that's probably going to make me look worse. Or they're going to learn something I worked my whole life to learn. They're going to get it for free in 5 minutes. But you know what? Good. Why not? It's not for me. My life isn't about me. It's way bigger and more important than that. And when I make it about other people, then my purpose finds me. But as long as it's about me, I'm killing my purpose. There's nothing I've ever done for myself that gave me a sense of purpose.
Wow. Your thoughts on temptation? I think that a lot of relationships are destroyed because of temptation, whether it's adultery, whether it's, I don't know, stealing, whether it's addiction. What are your thoughts on temptation?
I think everybody gets tempted. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's the temptation that destroys their relationship. So I think people get tempted and they don't destroy their relationships. I understand though, the temptation is the lure. It's like the bait in the trap. So the temptation is the bait. And then the trap is selfishness. Okay. It's me first. So the way we should handle temptation is if we take the bait of temptation, we all see the trap. It's not like we don't see the trap. We see the bait, temptation. We know the trap, but we want the bait. So we ignore the trap. So we ignore the truth. We block out the truth so we can have the bait, thinking we can get the bait without getting in the trap. But so the answer to temptation is to stop and to ask yourself, okay, if I take the bait, what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to destroy. But we justify things so much, Rachel, that they'll take the bait, go into the trap, destroy their wife, and then they will say, I messed up, but I loved you. Mm-hmm. I loved you all along. No, you didn't. So we need to stop and realize, hey, am I going to love my wife or am I going to love the temptation? And the temptation is not the problem. It's me. So the real question is, am I going to love my wife or am I going to love myself? Mm. And this is where I get in real hot water and I get most misunderstood. And I told Tammy, my wife, I'm not going to say this. I'm going to say it. The whole world says, unless you love yourself, you can't love anyone else. But the truth is, if you love yourself, you can't love anyone else. Because love puts someone first. And if I put myself first in my life, then you're going to come last. And as long as I'm first, so save my life, I lose it. Lay it down, I find it.
Wow. Two more questions for you. You've had a very long marriage, successful, obviously. I'm sure not without its ups and downs. What would you say is the key to a lasting marriage?
Two people willing to love. Me, in other words, my wife and I got many stories on this, right? But we failed to love each other all the time. I would say, probably safer for me to say, I failed to love her more than she fails to love me. But we both failed to love each other a lot. But the key is that we're willing to repent. You know, I don't know a way. I mean, over time, we do get a lot better. We're a lot better now than we were in the beginning, but it's been, you know, a fight the whole way through. And it's been wonderful at the same time, but there's been plenty of hardcore brawls, you know. But when it's over, so every time hurt comes, love will either begin to die or it has its greatest opportunity ever to grow.
Mm.
And whether or not love grows or begins to die after hurt comes is what we do after it comes. So am I willing to love through the hurt? And is my wife willing to love through the hurt? And it takes two in a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if she won't love, then me loving her will be taking a stand against her for not loving. Not so I'm loved, but because it's best for her and so that she lives a fruitful life. So the answer to your question is, when these things come along, are we both willing to say we're sorry, to own our own parts, and then to be willing to forgive each other and move on? And if we are, what happens when we have really hard situations and we love each other through it, then we're willing to love through it. When we come out of that, we'll feel more love for each other than we've ever felt.
Right.
You know?
So it's like you keep growing.
Yeah. So it's like, what does it look like? It's like, you know, we have a brutal knockdown, drag out, we hadn't talked for 2 days. I don't ever want, you know, I'm like, I'm going a week on this one. You know, I'm not saying a word, you know, but I wake up the next morning, my coffee's on the table on the way to get out. You go out, you know, and my first thought is, man, I need to look in here because give a little bit to the dog, see if he kicks a bucket before I get out of the house. You know, like, why is she giving me coffee? It's not for me, you know, but really it is. So it's just a suggestion. I still love you. So one of the things my wife says a lot when we get it at odds with each other, she say, I don't like you. And I'm like, I don't like you either. Oh, but what we're really saying is I still love you.
Right. Right.
You know, and I'm going to love you and I'm not going to stop loving you. So.
Right. Right. And do you think it has to do with not giving up? I mean, it's okay to fight. It's okay to have these knockdown, drag out fights as long as you don't walk away and give up and take, you know, go into temptation at your lowest. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ultimately, not giving up on love. So right. I can't make my wife love me. It's not even my responsibility to make sure she loves me. My responsibility is to love my wife. And if I love her, then I want her to love.
Got it.
Now, but it takes two, because sometimes we think that loving means I'm loving you. We got in this knockdown, drag out. You're not repenting. You're not owning anything. You're just sticking to your guns. You're being selfish as can be. I'm willing to do that, but you're not. So we think it's loving to just pretend that's okay. But if I really love you, it's like, no, we're not packing up, moving on. We still got some stuff we got to unpack. Because until you're willing to repent, we're just going to go on further apart, not closer together.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, it's not easy, but in real life, it's just a willingness to continue. But one other answer to a question you asked earlier was like, how do you know if someone loves you or if this is love or not? But one other thing, and it applies here as well, is that if someone loves you, then they're willing to correct you if they believe it's best for you, even if they lose you.
Mm.
So if you're in an early relationship and someone is doing everything to please you, it's not for you, it's for them. Especially if what you're doing is selfish and they're willing to go along with it. But if someone is willing to say, "Hey, why would you do that?" and that's not who you are. It's not certainly not who you should be, and I'm not going to help you do that. And sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes all you got to do is give them the look. Like, wait, what? So if someone's willing to do what they believe is best for you, even if it means they lose you, they probably love you.
Right. Right. Last question. I know this is going to be a hard one, but what do you think is the most misunderstood thing about love?
Well, that is a feeling, and if we believe love, and that it's a feeling, and that other people loving me depends on who I am. That's the most damaging understanding about love, because then that's how, if I believe that's how I'm loved, then that's how I'm going to love. And my core belief about what love really is what sets the table for every relationship I'm ever going to have. So if I believe that someone failing to love me and hurting me was actually love, and that I'm only loved if I perform or I do certain things, then I go into new relationships. And that's how I love the people in my relationship. If I still believe that, okay, that's how I love the people in this relationship. And then I destroy those relationships because I'm loving them based on who they are, not based on who I am. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, because that's what I believed, the reason I destroyed this relationship isn't me, it's the person that failed to love me, because that's what I believe about love. But if we can ever have a true belief about what love is, because this isn't all rooted. I don't think anybody needs to revisit all kinds of stuff. What they need to do is identify. Sometimes we have to revisit some stuff to identify the lie we believe. Mm-hmm. But what really needs, you can revisit everything 1,000 times. If you don't change the core belief, nothing's ever going to change. Mm-hmm. But if you can identify the belief, now you know exactly what you got to work on, maybe for the rest of your life, but things are going to be getting better the whole way. Right. And you'll see the fruit of it. So.
Wow, Kenny, we just had a major sermon here. I love it. I think you're fantastic. And that was so eye-opening. What, if our listeners want to hear more from you, what's your call to action? Do you give sermons? Do you give talks? Do you have something people can buy? What, do you have a book? What?
Yeah. So really, I don't know if I have a call to action. I'm a guy, that's been working on this forever. I do have an Instagram. It's at John Kennedy Vaughn. And we have one at Shields of Strength. I have a book. I do have a book. I finally wrote a book. It took me 7 years to do it, but all of this is in the book. It's called The Right Fight, How to Live a Loving Life. And then we have our own podcast called The Right Fight Podcast. There's 100-something episodes on there where really we just try to do real life situations. This is what happened this week. What does love do? And what does fear do? And and why is this the right and wrong way to do it? And just try to reveal the truth in it. But the wonderful thing about this is if the light ever comes on, you'll never be able to unsee it. Right. You'll know it, and really there's only one love, and he loves you. I love he'll keep the lights on.
And I saw something about the dog tags with the faith-based words on it. Do you still do that?
Yeah, we do. Matter of fact, so we did dog tags for about 10 years, and then we started a whole jewelry line after that because we got forced to stop doing the dog tags. Mm-hmm. And then we've been in a battle over that for quite a while. That it's almost over. Might see this in the news.
Yeah, I saw that the Department of Justice was trying to get your company to stop doing it or something crazy.
Yes, ma'am.
And how's that going?
I think it's going to be okay.
Oh, good. I'm so. See, you had faith, and hopefully faith will.
Yeah, that was a battle.
Yeah. Hopefully love and faith will prevail there. All right. Well, if anyone wants to look into your jewelry or something like this, where can they look at that?
That's shieldsofstrength.com, or just Google Shields of Strength. We're not hard to find. And we got 400 pieces of jewelry. Every piece of jewelry we make has a scripture on it. But it all came out of, I just want a reminder, just what my wife gave to me on my equipment, trying to share with somebody else. Maybe it'll help them.
Amazing. Amazing. You are so inspiring. I'm so happy that you found me and that you convinced me to do this. And I didn't know what to expect, but I feel like it really opened my eyes. So I really appreciate you. I wish you the best. And I think that we will probably revisit this conversation in a bit because I'd like to hear more.
Thank you for taking a chance on me, and I certainly wish you the best.
Thank you so much for listening to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Yucatel. Please be sure to subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star rating and review. You can support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/misunderstood with Rachel Yucatel. Do you have ideas for the show or want to reach out? Email us at info misunderstoodpodcast@gmail.com. That's spelled MISS understood. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.